Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another hypothetical March Madness bracket simulator. Now, obviously, I do have the record-breaking 363-team mega bracket that we are currently going through. Just finished round one yesterday, but those are longer videos, and I don't want to upload one of those every single day. I kind of want to stagger it so people are able to watch the last one, but we will be starting round two of that. This is just kind of a smaller project that I wanted to do. It's an alternate history bracket simulation that is very similar to the overall bracket that we saw in terms of real life. I did make a few changes with some bubble teams making the field, others not. And before anyone asks, I tried to look on this website if I can separate it into regions. You're not able to. I don't know if you got to pay for it. I was going through the settings. I looked through everything. I wanted to separate it to where we could get 4 1 seeds, but it's basically just going to be like this is a de facto 1v16 matchup. Alabama and Fairleigh Dickinson. You know what? I think Alabama, they might be in the wrong place at the wrong time for that game. We're going to have to see when we go through the simulation. But guys, round one today, it's 32 games I'm going to be simulating. We're going to do round one, and then there might only be one more video because it's going to go really fast comparing it to my 363 team bracket. That takes I had to simulate like 90 games in the first round. But you guys can see, I'm going to go to the overall seeds. If we can do that, look at the participants and go to the seed lines here. And so basically everything is the same outside of a few teams. So I looked up the committee's overall rankings on the way they seeded, and it's just a carbon copy. I just copy and pasted it in. It's Alabama, Houston, Kansas, Purdue. Those were all the 1 seeds. UCLA, Texas, Arizona, Marquette. Those are all the 2 seeds. Baylor, Gonzaga, Kansas State, Xavier. The only teams that I actually changed, I added in Michigan, who was on the bubble and didn't get in. I added in North Carolina, North Texas, and Rutgers. And those are all 11 seeds. And then I think I knocked Mississippi State, Arizona, and Pittsburgh out. And then another team. So just kind of an alternate history kind of thing. And then I also added a few other ones. If you look, Eastern Washington, I added them because they were the number 1 overall seed in the Big Sky tournament. And they ended up losing. Montana State won that. But now Eastern Washington is in instead of Montana State. And then Lafayette is in instead of Colgate. So those 2 teams are in. Also, Youngstown State is in instead of Northern Kentucky from the Horizon. Because Youngstown State was the number 1 seed. And it's just kind of just a little fun little thing just to add other different teams in for this. But most of it is the complete same. We're going to get most of the same matchups. It's just an alternate simulation. We're going to see how it turns out. All right, guys, it is time to go through the first 10 simulations of round one. A few quick things. I changed a few smaller teams. So Toledo is in instead of Kent State. And UMass Lowell is in instead of Vermont. Those are the other 2 changes that I make. Everything else is the same. And we begin with a 1v16 matchup. It's Fairleigh Dickinson. Can they pull off the impossible again against Alabama, neutral court? Bama, the number 1 overall seed coming into this. Let's take a look. FDU. Oh my goodness, wow. Yeah, it's not happening. Alabama, 104-57 over FDU. You know what? It's a valiant effort, but wow, what an absolute annihilation. Bama drops in a 100-burger. Moving on to the next game, winner of this matchup will face Alabama in the second round. This is an 8v9 matchup. Florida Atlantic, who is now in the Final Four, sitting at 35-3 now. In this, they're 31-3. They're taking on Iowa, and we would expect FAU to win this game fairly easily, I'm sure. And Iowa ends up winning. Well, guys, this is why it's a simulation. It's going to be different. Iowa, they've got a great offense. They make a few threes, and they win a higher scoring game, 97-85. Iowa knocks out a Final Four team in the first round. Amazing. Next, we have Toledo and Virginia. I would honestly think Toledo's going to win this game. I mean, Virginia is a complete fraud. Let's just call it what it is. Toledo, this is a great style matchup. You've got an offensive juggernaut versus a defensive slow team. Toledo, Virginia in a 3v14 game should basically be a pick'em, and there it is, Virginia. So Virginia gets upset by a 13 seed in real life and in the simulation because the model knows, it understands Virginia against Toledo. This is an offensive-minded team, and what a high-scoring first half, 47-46. I find that very hard to believe, that Virginia would be involved in that high scoring of a game, but they do win. Next, we have VCU taking on San Diego State. So San Diego State also, they're another team in the Final Four, but they could very easily lose this game. This is a 5v12 matchup. Let's go ahead and play this out. And San Diego State does hold serve, another higher scoring game, 86-77. So San Diego State advances onto the round of 32. Next, we have UMass Lowell making their tournament debut here this year. They have replaced Vermont. They're sitting at a 15 seed at 26-8. They are taking on Marquette, the worst 2 seed in the tournament. So this is a 15v2 matchup. You would expect Marquette to be a heavy favorite. And UMass Lowell with a shocking 2v15 upset, absolutely controlling this game. This is why the simulation is amazing. The 15 seed will advance onto the second round there. Next, we have Utah State taking on Texas A&M. This is the 7v10 matchup. With what was Texas A&M's the 7 seed, Utah State is the 10 seed. This is basically a toss-up game. This is a pick-em, I would say. Both of these teams are good, and it is Texas A&M holding on at wow. How do you score 64 points in a half in college? What are these kids shooting? Oh, they spread it around a little bit. Yeah, I mean, listen, that's a really high scoring half, but Texas A&M holds on for the win. Let me tell you, this simulator loves high-scoring games. All right, so this is Eastern Washington making their tournament debut. They're taking on Baylor University in a 3v14 game. Eastern Washington is subbing in for Montana State. If you guys remember, again, Eastern Washington, they were the number 1 seed in their tournament. This team can very easily beat Baylor. Baylor's on upset alert. Let's see. And Baylor holds serve, and they win that game 95-82 after kind of getting up almost an upset scare there in the first half. But this is Baylor we're talking about. They come back. Eastern Washington, you got to play better defense than that. They're not able to. Next, we have a rematch of the college football playoff semifinals. You got to be kidding me. It's Michigan taking on TCU. And yeah, I would say TCU slight favorites. Michigan, they were on the bubble. They didn't do enough in real life. Can they get their redemption in the simulation? We will see. And no, they can't even do that. It's TCU winning this as well. Guys, do I have 25-minute halves on or something? All of these games are just crazy. I mean, they're all in the 90s. But TCU beats Michigan in both college football and college basketball. They win this game by 9 points there. And then we do have Youngstown State, who is subbing in out of the Horizon League for Northern Kentucky. And they are, all right, they're facing Purdue. So this is a 1v16 game. We understand how it went in real life. Can Purdue and Zach Edey get their revenge? We will see. They're big favorites against Youngstown State, and they annihilate Youngstown State. So they do get revenge. Purdue will be moving on. Let's take a look at the numbers. Zach Edey goes 25-17 there, and they do end up shooting. Wow. They shot 10 of 15 from 3. They could have used that in real life, couldn't they? I'm going to load up some more matchups. All right, so this is how the bracket is looking so far. They actually allow you to add the scores into them. I mean, we've got so many, all of these games are in the 80s or the 90s. Alabama scoring 100, but let's get to the next 10 simulations. Memphis and Illinois in another, what is this, an 8v9 game? Memphis, Illinois, if I have the seeding correct. A real toss-up. I think Memphis wins this one. I had them going, semi-far in the tournament, and they do. They have a huge second half comeback, and they beat the Fighting Illini by 4 points, 52 points in the second half. At least this one was kind of a little lower scoring, 79-75, but still a decent, number there being scored. We've got a 4v13 game. It is UConn taking on Louisiana. So UConn is now matched up here with a different team, and we would expect a huge UConn blowout. They are in the national championship after all. And that's this UConn team. It's just ridiculous. They win by 25 points. An absolute trouncing. They almost drop 100. UConn will be moving on. Next, we've got Charleston and Miami. So Miami, another Final Four team. I think Charleston is winning this game at 31-3. This is a 5v12 matchup. Miami was originally matched up in real life with Drake. In this simulator, they draw Charleston University, and we will see here if it'll play. I'm asking you to play the game. Oh, come on. Double overtime, and Charleston chokes in the second overtime, the highest scoring game in NCAA tournament history. I don't know if that's true or not. 120-110. Charleston scores 3 points in double overtime. Both of these teams lighting up the scoreboard, but Miami gets it done, and now it's the rematch that nobody asked for. UNC Asheville taking on UCLA. UCLA now with a healthy Jalen Clark. Yeah, this is going to be a 40-point game, guys. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Oh, my God. UNC Asheville, a de facto 16 seed. They're a 15 seed here. How? An absolute 2v15 stunner. UCLA fully healthy in this simulation. They got down early. They tried making a comeback, and they are out, and UNC Asheville will be advancing. We've got a nice 7v10 matchup, Boise State and Northwestern. We would expect Boise State to win this game. Thing is just a joke. All right, guys, this is it right now, if it'll load. And Northwestern does hold on against Boise State in the Mountain West. They win that game 71-61. Northwestern will be moving on. Another rematch. It's Kennesaw State taking on Xavier. Of course, Xavier was down by 10 points in the second half in real life against Kennesaw State. Will they handle their business in the simulation a little bit easier? And they do win this one. They win by 11. They control this game a little bit better, and they do beat Kennesaw State in that one. Next, we have Rutgers making their tournament debut this year, as they did not make, surprisingly, they should have made the tournament, but they did not make it. They will be taking on Iowa State, and I would think that Rutgers would be the heavy favorite in this game. They have a great defense, and this Rutgers team is just unbelievable. I think Rutgers they're probably in the Final Four right now, folks. I'll just be honest. I'll be honest, in real life, if they made the tournament. This defense is so crazy. They hold Iowa State to 59 points. They advance. And we've got another 1v16 matchup. It's Texas A&M Corpus Christi. In real life, they drew Alabama. In the simulation, they're facing the number 1 seed, Houston. Houston sitting at 25-point favorites in this matchup. And it will be, closer than expected, but Houston holds on to beat Texas A&M Corpus Christi by 10 points in that one. So Houston will be advancing. We've got another rematch 8v9 game. It's going to be Maryland taking on West Virginia. Maryland coming back to beat West Virginia in real life to kick off the tournament, and they beat them again here, 68-59. Lower scoring game. Maryland gets it done again. And the final matchup here, it's going to be Iona taking on Indiana in a 4v13 game. We would expect Indiana probably sitting at about 6-point favorites coming into this game. And Iona with a major upset there in a 4v13 game. Iona pulls it off and they will be advancing. All right, continuing on, it's going to be a 12v5 matchup. Drake taking on Duke. Now, in real life, Duke crushed Oral Roberts and Drake almost beat Miami. Miami came back. Let's take a look at this. And it is Drake University upsetting Duke in the first round. Drake will be moving on in the tournament with a nice second half comeback, winning a close competitive game there. Lafayette taking on Arizona in a 2v15 game. So Lafayette, if you guys don't know, they randomly made their conference championship game. They were horrible, and then they got crushed by Colgate. But I'm going to let them in at 11-23. Arizona coming into this game after losing in real life, but they are 27-point favorites coming in against a team 12 games under 500. And it was a little too close for comfort, but Arizona gets it done against Lafayette, winning that game by 9. That's a good performance there. This is another rematch. USC taking on Michigan State in a 10v7 game. Michigan State winning in real life and losing in the simulation. USC will be advancing after having a big second half, winning this game, holding Michigan State to 57 total points there. Next, we've got Grand Canyon taking on Gonzaga. It's another rematch. I would expect Gonzaga fairly easily to win this game. It's just a bad matchup for Grand Canyon, and that's an annihilation. Gonzaga by 30 over Grand Canyon. They win 82-52. Next, here it is. Here's the blue blood matchup that everyone wanted. North Carolina versus Kentucky, 11v6 seeding in the first round. North Carolina making the tournament after last year winning the entire thing. Can they go on a big run? Starting with Kentucky, and they cannot. So North Carolina bounced out in round 1. Kentucky, what did Sheblay have, a double-double? Yep, 15 and 14, and they end up advancing over North Carolina. The next matchup, it is another 1v16 game. It's another rematch. It is Kansas taking on Howard. Kansas expected to win this game by about 25 points, I would say. And a little bit closer than expected, but they do beat Howard 85-79. Almost a stunning 1v16 upset, but we don't get it. How about this? An all-SEC battle. Now, this cannot happen in real life. They would never see it like this, but it is funny. This is a very evenly matched SEC game. 20-13 versus 20-12. Same conference, round 1. And what a game we had. Auburn winning by 3 points, 51-49 in the second half. They beat Arkansas after Arkansas had that run in real life. They, beating Kansas. Auburn wins that game there. Now we've got Furman taking on Tennessee in a 4v13 game. Furman had an upset win in real life. We'll see. Although Tennessee's defense might just be, I think Tennessee's defense is going to be too good for them. And it is. They end up winning 80-71. Furman was up 13 points at the end of the first half. What an upset scare. But then somehow Tennessee, not known for their offense, drops 53 points in the second half. And now we have Oral Roberts and St. Mary's. So Oral Roberts, one of the worst performances we've seen by a 12 seed recently. They were dead against Duke in real life. Basically, after the first 7 minutes of that game, can they have a better performance coming in at 30-4? Can they get redemption against the St. Mary's team? And yes, they can. Oral Roberts advancing after trailing in the first half. The 12 seed beats the 5. they will be advancing. I think I've got 4 more games to do in the first round. And then the final 4 matchups of round 1, it is the real-life Cinderella Princeton taking on Texas University. Can we get a repeat? Can we get another 15v2 upset in this one? No, we cannot. Texas holds serve. They knock Princeton out in round 1. The Ivy League school is out in that one. Missouri and Penn State. I would expect Penn State to win this one, but it should be a close game. Let's take a look. And Missouri ends up beating Penn State 85-74. They are moving on. Next, we have Long Beach State. So I decided to sub out UC Santa Barbara for Long Beach State, who has the #1 offensive tempo in college basketball. I'm expecting a huge 14v3 upset here against the Kansas State team, who really made an impressive run to the Elite Eight in real life. But this Long Beach State team, they are very, very good on offense. And yeah, so, Kansas State ends up winning that one. And then finally, we have North Texas. See, North Texas, crazy good run in the NIT. They can frustrate this Creighton team. They really can. This is a scary 12v5 matchup. North Texas wants to keep this game lower scoring. They're great on defense. Let's see if they can do it against Creighton. See if it'll load. Can it please? And there it is. North Texas University with the upset. Maybe a little even higher scoring than I thought, but North Texas beats Creighton. They get into this tournament after being on the bubble and missing out in real life, but they get into the simulation and they win. I'm going to recap the first round now. All right, so this is the official update going into the round of 32. You can see Bama with probably the biggest blowout of round 1 over FDU. Iowa knocking out FAU. Toledo beating Virginia. San Diego State holding serve against VCU. UMass Lowell taking care of Marquette in a 15v2 upset. A&M beats Utah State. Baylor handles Eastern Washington. TCU beats Michigan. A lot of these games higher scoring. Purdue able to bounce back, beat Youngstown State in a 1v16 game. You had Memphis very narrowly beating Illinois in an 8v9 game. UConn crushes Louisiana. Miami of Florida beats Charleston, the highest scoring game in NCAA history in double overtime. UNC Asheville with a crazy 15-2 upset. Northwestern beating Boise State. This game was not reported correctly. Xavier beat Kennesaw. I just did not report that correctly. Let me submit that. Submit. Go ahead. All right, there we go. Xavier beats Kennesaw. You got Rutgers beating Iowa State. That's going to be a good matchup in the second round. Xavier and Rutgers. Then Houston beats Corpus Christi. Barely, though. Only by 10. Maryland beats West Virginia again. Iona beats Indiana. Drake beats Duke, so there's 2 upsets facing in the second round, 2 Cinderellas. Arizona over Lafayette. USC beats MSU. Gonzaga crushes Grand Canyon. Kentucky over North Carolina. Kansas beats Howard. Closer game than expected. Auburn beats Arkansas. Tennessee over Furman. Oral Roberts upset St. Mary's. Texas beats Princeton. Missouri over Penn State. Kansas State dispatches of Long Beach State. And then North Texas over Creighton. So the next update, I'll probably do both round 2 and round 3. And then in part 3, I'll do the rest of it. But that is the first part of this alternate history March Madness bracket simulation. Guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.